2026. Will you please call the roll, Madam Secretary?
Chairwoman Johnson.
Present.
Vice Chairman DeSimone.
Present.
Member Betancourt.
Here.
Member Saunders. Member Jeffrey. Member Raposa. Member Schultz. Executive Director Miguel Nunez.
Present.
Legal Counsel Brandon Carson.
Present.
Thank you. Agenda item number 1, the board may discuss and vote to approve the minutes of the meeting of January 6, 2026, and we've received the minutes and had a chance to review. Does anyone have any questions or comments, or can I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions. Motion passes. Agenda item number 2, the board may discuss and vote to approve the minutes of the meeting of January 13th, 2026.
So, second.
Moved and seconded to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I don't remember what I did 5 minutes ago. It doesn't look like I was here. Ray, is that if I abstain, it can
As
still,
long as you're
Yes.
ready.
they can still
Yes,
pass,
So long
right?
as you're on
Okay.
the dais, you have a quorum, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great. And motion passes. Agenda item number 3, the board may discuss and vote upon any election matter that requires an immediate ruling or determination arising from special referendums for North Smithfield and Warwick and the special elections for Coventry Council Districts 4 and 5. Director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thankfully, I can report to you today that there is no matter in today's special elections occurring in Coventry Town Council Districts 4 and 5, and these special referendums in North Smithfield and Warwick that would require an immediate ruling or determination by the board. However, I will provide a brief update on the overall progress of the special elections occurring today. Thus far, the elections have run extremely smoothly. However, turnout has been light. As of 2 p.m. this afternoon, in the town of Coventry, in the Districts 4 and 5 special election, 38 of the 10,986 eligible voters have actually voted, for an overall approximate turnout thus far of just over 1% of eligible voters. 38 residents voted during the early voting period, which ended yesterday at 4 p.m. The busiest polling place in Coventry has been that senior center in Coventry with 20 voters. Now, we have received 33 of the 64 mail ballots requested by Coventry voters. We still have 31 ballots from Coventry pending receipt. Thus far, only one Coventry voter's received mail ballot has been deemed deficient, and that voter has been notified that they have until February 10th at 4 p.m. to correct their issue to have their ballot be counted. Now, over in North Smithfield, in their special referendum at the town hall, which is the only polling place in operation today, 247 of the 9,734 eligible voters have voted, for an approximate overall turnout of 7.42%. 426 voters voted during the early voting period. For North Smithfield mail ballots, we have received 50 of the 67 mail ballots that have been requested, meaning there are 17 mail ballots still outstanding. Thus far, one North Smithfield voter's mail ballots had been deemed deficient. That voter was notified that their ballot had a signature issue. However, the voter has already cured that issue by returning the appropriately signed document to the Board of Elections. Now, finally, in the city of Warwick, 1,465 of the 63,951 eligible voters have voted, for an approximate turnout of just over 2.29%. 1,910 residents voted during the early voting period, which ended yesterday at 4 p.m. Now, because the city was closed due to a snowstorm last Monday on January 26th, the Board of Canvassers decided to offer early voting for 8 hours over this past weekend. 528 voters took advantage of this opportunity and cast their ballots on Saturday. Now, we have received 277 of the 339 mail ballots requested by Warwick voters, We still have 62 mail ballots still outstanding, which are due back at the board at 8 o'clock this evening. As of today, 0 Warwick voters' mail ballots were deemed deficient. Now, this afternoon, the staff did complete the tabulation of the 360 total mail ballots that we have received thus far for these 3 communities. Since 6 a.m. this morning, the Board of Elections has had 5 staff members and technicians in the field to support these 12 polling locations that are in operation. The only equipment issues to report were a screen on the DS200 of the Boys and Girls Club in Warwick was flickering. It was quickly resolved by our technician. Voting was not impacted, and there are 2 DS200s at every location. Also, at the GAM Theater in Warwick, one of the poll pads was pulled out of service due to the voter list not loading correctly. It was repaired within 30 minutes after some troubleshooting. Again, voting was not impacted because there are multiple poll pads available at the location. Now, the Board of Elections staff and technicians will remain out in the field until the polls close at 8 p.m. And we will have staff here at our facility until all the unofficial results have been received and published to the board's website, which will start right after 8 p.m., which is when the polls close and all of the official drop boxes will be locked. This concludes my election day report on the Coventry Town Council's District 4 and 5 special election and the North Smithfield and Warwick special referendums. And I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thanks, Miguel. Any questions for Miguel? Yes, sir.
So, Miguel, with regard to these special elections, and I'm speaking particularly to the referenda, not so much the elections of, to refill council seats or refill rep seats, things of that nature. But with regard to these special referenda, I think I'm going to request that at some point, and I know it's an election year, so I don't expect this to be on the top of the pile, but at some point, we do some kind of a review to determine, one, how much we're spending, how much effort our staff is putting in, and the cities and towns, the local canvassers are putting in, and the costs and effort associated with these, because these special referendums, from my standpoint, are being decided, like in a city like Warwick, by less than 6% of the voters. And there's significant amounts of money, and there's significant amounts of money that are being expended to have these elections. So at some point, I just want to put that on your radar. And because I know I've discussed it before, ad nauseum probably, but just so you're aware of it. But thank you for the update.
You're welcome. We'll certainly work on getting that to you at some point in the future.
Thanks. Anything else? Okay. And I know we're going to hold on agenda item number 4 until Commissioner Jack Boney gets here.
Correct.
So we'll move on to agenda item number 5. The board may discuss and vote to reduce penalties imposed upon Jonathan P. Scott under Rhode Island General Laws 17-25 and to suspend their campaign finance account for good cause pursuant to Rhode Island Rules and Regulations 410-RICR-10-00-14, campaign finance accounts receivable, reduction of penalties, and suspension of campaign account.
Good afternoon. Mr. Scott is here.
Come on up.
I'm just going to introduce how you're doing. Turn the mic on. Just,
That one's tricky. I hate
It's
that.
not just me.
It's not.
That would have been a bad omen.
Yep,
There
there it
you
is.
go.
I'm loud enough anyway. Remember me from my days.
Okay. Good afternoon. Mr. Scott ran for Providence Mayor in 2010. During that time, he did not file any of the required campaign finance reports. Communication that we established with Mrs. Scott in December of 2025, he indicated that he had left the state shortly after the election. The notices that were sent to the address we had on file, many of those notices were returned because he was not there any longer. we were finally able to establish a contact residence because Mr. Scott registered in Rhode Island in January 2025, and he received the mail. It was his parents' house. He received the mail and made contact with the board. Mr. Scott did acknowledge during the 2010 campaign, he's indicating although he did not raise any private money, he did spend a little over $6,000 of his own money on his campaign, which was not successful. And again, there were no reports filed during that campaign. So this information is coming to us late. The proposal, again, the fines at this point, because of the multiple unfiled reports, as of today, accumulated to $360,368. Based on the regulation that was adopted by the board, Mr. Scott would fall into category 2. Essentially, he qualified to be a candidate. He was placed on the ballot. He failed to file one or more campaign finance reports due within the election cycle. Based on the regulation, the board may vote to reduce the fine to a maximum of $1,000 per delinquent report through the second election cycle following the election. That means the maximum fine the board may consider is $20,000. That'd be 20 reports at $1,000 per report. My recommendation is to reduce that to $250 per report for the 20 reports, or a total fine of $5,000, and then also to suspend his account at that time. 90 days to pay that amount. Failure to pay within that 90-day period would refer the debt over to central collections.
Thank you, Rick. And before we hear from Mr. Scott, does anyone on the board have any questions for Rick? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that Mr. Scott mentioned or said having $6,000 from his, do we have records of that now or still?
Mr. Scott provided me in an email an attachment, and he
Got it.
broke down what, essentially $6,150 and what it comprised of. And it was, I would say, typical campaigning material that he spent his own money on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Scott, are you going to present any factual presentation or just argument?
Just my statement. I'm here, I would say, I'm here of my own free will. I do certainly, I've had the conversation. I do retain the right to seek legal advice post this meeting, should things happen. I do want to thank the board for inviting me back to Rhode Island. I get here very infrequently these days, and do love the state still, but since January of 2011 have lived in New York and Massachusetts. So I've not been rarely in Rhode Island. What Mr. Thornton refers to is that I needed a Rhode Island ID. I was here caring for ill parents for a little bit. And so I got a Rhode Island ID. I have not voted in Rhode Island. I have not lived in Rhode Island. And in fact, Sarah Council, this was 15 years ago we're talking about. So when I went back to look for any records, there certainly are no records. Nobody keeps things 15 years. I certainly don't have any receipts from campaign signs bought in 2010. I have not lived in the state, and none of this came to me. This was, in fact, I think the subject of my email to Mr. Thornton on the way back was, is this a scam? Because all of a sudden I get out of nowhere, I get a letter from the Board of Elections at my parents' house saying that I owe the state $363,000, which is just ridiculous on the surface. So, I'm here today to let you know that this was a surprise to me until I got Mr. Thornton's letter, and it was a shock to my elderly stepfather who opened it for me. But there's certainly no records. I went back to look at an email address that we used, and while the email address, we can date things by saying it was a Yahoo email address. There was nothing left in the email address because it had been unused for so long.
Right.
It got wiped out. So anything that was in there was gone.
Great, thank you. Before we move on, I do want to see if board members have anything for Rick before we move on, and I have a couple of questions, but I'll defer to my board members first, I think, by Mr.
I
Bessie.
was just going to ask, Rick, when did you receive that communication that you referenced?
That was received in January, just last month, early
And
January.
was that subsequent to the letter that you sent out for the 360,000, or is it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We had several email exchanges after Mr. Scott contacted me after getting that letter. Again, as he indicated, he was shocked by the amount, and then we had a dialogue that followed.
That's really all I want.
Okay, Commissioner Schultz?
Yeah, a simple question, Mr. Scott. Why did you file reports?
It was kind of a put together last minute campaign. I had a treasurer, and we switched to treasurer. I assumed that had been done as it had been done for me when I ran for US Congress against Mr. Kennedy in 2006 and 2008. Whatever happened there in the transition with, I left the state rather suddenly, so I didn't even know. I was sort of done with Rhode Island at that point, so.
When you ran against Mr. Kennedy, did you file reports?
I did not. My campaign treasurer and finance chair did.
Did you sign the reports?
I don't remember, but I must have.
Mhm.
I know that we did we were very cognizant in that campaign of compartmentalizing everything because there was a little bit more money spent in that campaign, and it was not entirely out of my own pocket.
Right, when you ran for mayor, did you lose in the primary?
I was an independent, so I faced off against Mayor Tavares. Was in the end. He was the one that came out of the Democratic.
Did you ever question your treasurer why he did not file reports for you?
I did not know. In fact, I did not know that things had not been filed until I got the letter from Mr. Thornton in December of this year, or of last year, of 2025. So I had no idea. There was no indication to me that anything was remiss from the time that I left Rhode Island in January of 2011. This was the very first thing I had heard of that campaign since that day that I left Rhode Island. Or since really the day of November, would have been November 5th and November
Right.
4th, the day after the campaign.
You say
I
you
do-
lived
Go
in-
ahead, Rick.
You lived in New York and Massachusetts. Did you run for office in those states
No,
after you left
no,
Rhode Island?
no.
Did you vote in those states since you left Rhode
I
Island?
voted Massachusetts,
Yeah, whereabouts in Massachusetts?
Plymouth, Massachusetts.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Well, Rick, I definitely want to hear from you because I think I hear what you're saying, Mr. Scott. And as I've always said, I have great respect for anyone who, decides and takes the initiative to run for office. And being that you opened a there are parameters that up front of, what it means to be able to run for office, have a campaign account and file those reports. And I guess Rick, you might be answering this before I ask the question, but just to ask the question, to say you're surprised now that it's gotten to this level, when you left Rick, I know you make very diligent attempts to reach out to people so it doesn't get to this
Right.
point.
And when Mr. Scott failed to file any report, there would have been 2 notices of noncompliance sent, one first-class mail, one certified mail. I believe at the time you were living on Mayflower Street when you ran it in 2010. So there would have been communications that were sent and then not responded to. When you left the state, again, I think you even indicated in one of the emails, that was the last best address we had. So yes, those letters would bounce back to us. But during the campaign, when you were residing on Mayflower Drive or Mayflower Street, those would have been received by you because that is the address that you declared your candidacy from and were registered with this agency.
We're talking about 15 years ago, and I don't remember that If there had been a letter that had come in,
Mhm.
and it would have been passed on to I do not remember a letter. There was no correspondence that I remember. But again, we're talking about 15 years ago, and you know, justice delayed is not truly justice, according to Justice
We're-
Brandeis.
Yeah, and I just want to also make the point that regardless of how many years ago, we have a lot of these come before us and the staff works diligently and we have, you know, what we think is as close to an equitable formula to be able to reduce these fines. We don't, you know, we don't have to. And so we have had many people come before us with differing, you know, life issues that have come and we take all of that into consideration. But, you know, because it was 15 years ago doesn't mean it's irrelevant. You weren't compliant with the laws. So I don't know if there's anything else you wish to.
No, I've told you where I.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I know, because I know the part of the recommendation, the fine would be due within 90 days and failure to comply would be a referral to the Department of Revenue. If, based on the decision that we make, do you believe that you'll be able to make a payment within 90 days?
A payment perhaps. I don't know as I'll be able to pay the whole thing.
Okay.
I don't know what, you know, the situation is, but,
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, please.
From, Ray, from looking at the statute, is there anything in the statute that would absolve him if he did not raise any money but only used his own money? I just want to get something on
Not
record
to
that
my,
that's
not to my
that's
memory.
not
There's
technically
nothing
an
that
offense.
goes into that kind of detail. It's whether or not you file. So you have obligations even if you, until and unless you get an excusal from Rick's office with respect to attesting that you have not raised or expended money, those obligations continue even if you have $0.
Thank you, Ray.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Oh, I
ma'am.
don't-
Yes, Commissioner. Yes.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I just want to, unless anybody else has comments, I wanted to make a motion to approve the staff recommendation to impose a fine of $5,000 to be paid by Mr. Scott within the next 90 days.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I think should add the suspension of the account as well.
Yes, to follow the bullet points outlined in the document that our incredible staff have outlined, including if Mr. Scott doesn't pay within 90 days, the consequences of that, and the suspension of his account.
Thank you.
Randy has a question.
Motion.
Oh, Randy has a question.
Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, sorry, I'll wait for the second. I didn't.
Okay.
I have a question.
I mean, I'll second it so that we can discuss it. Absolutely.
Okay, motion and seconded. Any further discussion?
I apologize for being late, but I think I'm getting the gist of what we've discussed here. It sounds like Mr. Scott's saying that he wasn't aware, essentially. I think
He
is
left the state.
bottom-
He was
bottom
not in the
line.
state of
not
Rhode
even
Island.
a state.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure I think I have the sense of where everybody's coming from. Thank you.
And then just while we're in discussion, can I ask
Yes.
Rick one more question?
Yes, of course.
And Rick, once this goes to the central collection unit, is the central collection unit authorized to resolve this matter and settle this matter in any way?
They are not bound by the board's decision. If they, in dealing directly with the debtor, they can dig deeper into financial circumstances and they can recommend back to the executive director a reduction, which would get approved.
So they could settle it for an amount less
That's
than
correct.
5,000 if they chose to.
That's correct. And in installment payments and
Mhm.
yeah, they
Thank you.
have many options.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That's helpful to know.
Okay, motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we go back up now, or you want to just finish off number 6 and then go back to 4? Does it matter, Ray? No, you're good. Okay, agenda item number 4, the board may discuss and vote upon proposed legislation presented by a member of the Board of Elections for submission to the General Assembly for the 2026 legislative session. The proposed legislation is attached to the agenda. Commissioner?
Thank you. I want to thank the executive director, Mr. Mercantio, for taking some time to offer 2 options for us. I think the first option was probably closer, was maybe edits with the existing legislation that I proposed at the last meeting. So that's where we're going to focus. I have some questions on a couple of the changes that were made, and then just one comment. Just a question in subsection C.
Which version?
This, is this
Version
version
one.
2?
Oh, version 1?
Version, whatever you're calling your
Yours?
version.
Oh, it's, yeah, we
Yeah.
call it version 2 and
Yeah.
3.
Okay, then
Sorry.
version 2.
Thank
Then-
you.
Sorry, I'm looking at the copy I printed out on my printer, so I don't know if we have the.
So subsection C of
Yeah, so
version 2.
subsection
Yep.
C, Mr. Mercatio, you struck Board of Canvassers in the Secretary of State. I'm just wondering what the thought is on that, because I'm worried that that would make it inconsistent with current practice, because right now.
Well, yeah, Miguel and I spoke about this. What we're actually trying to do is make this uniform. So we want to make sure that the person knows who's involved in this process of returning the mail ballot, that it needs to get either to the board or to a Dropbox
Okay,
by close of the election, 8 p.m. election day. So that's the purpose for doing so. If you were, for example, to go to the canvassing authority at 7:30 that night,
it'd be closed, maybe. Well,
now,
maybe not on
now
election
if you
day,
go,
but-
if you go to their office and it's open and there's a Dropbox, you're all set.
Yeah, okay,
And that does raise one comment. There was a number of important comments you received, some of which were today. I think we need time to absorb all of that. But one of them was a concern that by limiting it to the Dropbox, you would be precluding the person from going back to the polling place by 8 p.m. That was not the intent. And in fact, when I worked on this and when Miguel reviewed it, I'm sure we were both thinking that under your regulation, every polling place must have a Dropbox. So it is read into this now, whether out of concern that maybe the regulation could be modified, it hasn't been, but out of concern for that, we could then modify the statute further to make that clear. But as of today, any Dropbox, every polling place would have a Dropbox available.
thank you. That answers my question. So there's just basically, I think you're trying to remove some confusion to not from the statute, which makes sense to me. My other comment was, and thank you again for the edits, sir. I appreciate the inclusion of subsection K, which is great.
And that is the law. I mean,
Yes.
it's just that I thought to address again, very legitimate concerns that we at least incorporate that into this to make that very clear that whatever restrictions you're imposing on the transmission of a ballot, it would not apply to someone who has any qualifying condition as described in your statutes.
And then my only final comment, and it's just a suggestion of rereading it, is that I think I neglected to include in what is now and still subsection G, a reference to a caretaker being included in the list of,
Okay.
so we have it said, other than except that the person's immediate family or lives in the same household. We probably should, after that, or caretaker, because if someone has a care, like whether they not live in or not, a caretaker should be included in that list of people, in my opinion. Now, I do know that we have comments that I'm not glossing over those, but I just wanted to get to those comments first.
Yeah, the exercise I went through was to first review version 1, Mr. Jack Boney's draft, and determine whether or not there are adequate legal underpinnings to support that even being adopted. There probably are. I would say that there are, in my opinion, looking over the U.S. Supreme Court case in 2021 that involved a legislation from the state of Arizona. And in that statute that was analyzed by the U.S. Supreme Court, Arizona made it a crime for, quote, any person other than a postal worker, an election official, voter's caregiver, family member, or household member to knowingly collect an early ballot either before or after it had been completed. Now, Arizona has its own mechanism to protect those who have a disability and may need assistance. They actually would afford assistance from an election worker to assist with that. But the U.S. Supreme Court reviewed that statute, reviewed all aspects of the statute, and approved it, found it to be valid. That doesn't mean that it would necessarily survive every single challenge. I think that challenge focused on whether or not the Arizona statute would have a disparate impact based upon race primarily. I'm sure you could approach it from a different view or a different challenge. But in the Supreme Court, they did speak to whether or not there might be rights to speech that are affected and found that there would not be, finding that courts have rejected the argument that the collection of early ballots is expressive conduct protected by the First Amendment. So by and large, I found that the revisions to the statute 17-2023 that were first proposed by Mr. Giacavone could be advanced, given that you have a U.S. Supreme Court that in many respects would support it. That Supreme Court case cited with approval the Carter Baker Commission from 2005 that went through the whole analysis and assessment of how people would be more vulnerable to influence when they're doing a mail ballot, a ballot of that nature. So it seemed that there's support for that. My version 2 that I did, I think Mr. Giacavone has already addressed. My version 3 was an attempt to kind of move away from some of the mechanisms that Mr. Giacavone proposed while still possibly reaching the goals that he was interested in. It may not be, but just for purposes of completion, if you look at version 3, I move away from the idea of restricting the person who is transmitting the ballot. So I get away from the idea of who might be, involved or associated with a campaign and focus more on whether or not that person is receiving some form of compensation as a result of the number of ballots that they are returning to the polling place. And that language, I reviewed a number of states, that language follows a lot of the language that you would find in the state of California and others that use the no compensation rule for the use of a proxy who is transmitting back a ballot. And then to get away from the who can be present, who can't be present, I instead attempt to address it by saying that there can't be any coercion. So if whatever you're doing, you may be actually assisting someone who needs assistance, there can be no coercion in that conduct that would, as I say, and it's been questioned by some, but unduly influence the voter when that voter is actually striking the ballot in their own home, in a hospital setting, wherever that might be. Those are the main changes that I proposed for version 3. Again, not suggesting that it's the best way to do it, but if the board wants to get into the whole issue of modifying transmission
Mhm.
of ballots and modifying how we allow the presence of people. These are alternatives for you to at least consider.
So, and I appreciate the way you just worded that, 'cause that's part of my question. So you're saying, so like, if we want to move on with this, it's really helpful, the difference between both of them. And I would be curious to see if the commissioner would be okay, because in version 3, to your point, you're not making specific, you're not outlining individual humans, right? You're saying a person that has been authorized. I am curious about, so the ACLU and Common Cause sent a letter and they talk about the issue around compensation and that it could, that wording could be an issue. And so I'm just, didn't know
You
that
should,
California had
you should
something like
weigh
that.
that, seriously, consider it. When I read it, I did not come to the same conclusion, but that should be at least factored in. So
Mhm.
whatever language that we use, because what I try to make clear is that no form of consideration can be offered specifically in exchange for returning
Mhm.
another voter's ballot.
Mhm.
Now, if you're a caregiver, you're doing a number of things for that person, including getting possibly toothpaste at a CVS or whatever. There are a number of things you're doing for compensation.
Yeah.
This would be actually delivering a ballot back, but your compensation is not
Based on-
directed
Mhm.
or connected to the return of that ballot.
Mhm.
It's because of the assistance you're giving generally
Correct. It's a
to the
different,
person.
yeah. Mhm. So can I ask just a follow-up question on that? And the question is actually to the commissioner. It's because what I kept thinking about, okay, so they're different but very similar. But I think in order for, both Ray and the rest of us to decide which, if one of these versions works, is what is the main goal that we're trying to do, right? And is that goal being met with any of these versions, in your opinion? Like, are they doing are they preventing the acts that you're trying to? Does that make sense? That's my question.
It does, yeah. And I think while I appreciate version 3, I'm going to focus on version 2 because I don't think version 3 does adequately address the things that that we discussed the last time, but I will reframe them here. So obviously, doing a mail ballot is different than a polling place, but we
Mhm.
have a lot of controls within the polling place. So we do not allow electioneering within, is it 50 or 100 feet? 50.
Mhm.
Within, and so the idea of having somebody from a campaign standing next to you,
Mhm.
well, it creates a completely different, now obviously we cannot recreate a polling place at someone's home or
Mhm.
wherever they may be, but I'm trying to get as close to that as possible. So that's the first thing. I don't think it addresses that. And fundamentally, and I've said this repeatedly, there's a conflict of interest for someone from a campaign to hold one of these ballots in their hand, whether it's sealed, not sealed, what have you. I think one of the things, and I appreciate again, I want to address, I won't talk to the other things in the newest letter from ACLU and Common Cause, because I think those focus more on version 3.
Mhm.
But going back to what I mentioned the last time is remembering the discussions from last year, the concerns for those that may have disabilities. One, I think the addition of what Mr. Mercaccio added is excellent. And two, that's why this year what I've included is the ability for us to create maybe somewhat similar or to what Arizona did, create the ability for us to essentially deputize people to go out and help with that, whether it be a community group or someone that, disinterested from a campaign, but a community group that might want to go out and help. I think there are people out there that want to do that. So I think giving us the ability to make those rules and regulations actually kind of fill some of that gap. I recognize that, as Mr. Marion and I discussed last time, we may be too far apart to come to a compromise, but at least, I want everybody to know that I heard those concerns and want to put something in there to make sure that is in there. Again, my first act as a member of the Cranston Board of Canvassers was going to a nursing home as a bipartisan pair, helping someone to vote. So I thought that was a common occurrence, but it's not common enough, clearly. But I think we can create a mechanism to make it more common.
Thank you. Anyone else? I know you acknowledge and we received a letter from the ACLU and Common Cause. I don't see anyone here from there. And I think earlier, in the week we received
Kate, yeah.
Kate's letter as well. Kate, do you wish to add anything? Oh, you're welcome to.
Is it copy that letter in the packet?
Yeah,
It's in the packet. I know I read it online, but.
hold it for like 3 seconds.
It might not be here.
Forget it.
I don't think it's here.
I can look at my email.
I know that was.
Someday I'm just gonna go down there and try it. I know.
Oh, there you go.
Mike's
You did
coming.
it.
Oh, you got it.
Okay.
Every time
you
Mike
hear
gets
me?
up out of his
Yes.
chair.
I am Kate Bowden from Disability Rights Rhode Island. We did submit a letter prior to the multiple versions
Mhm.
coming out. As you know, our job is to identify barriers, not as much pick and choose pieces of legislation. It does appear that subsection K addresses some of the concerns that we had in terms of not blocking a person from getting assistance. And I do believe that an argument could be made by other advocates who are perhaps not here, that version 3 is more narrowly tailored to get at what you're concerned about with fewer unintended consequences. And I'm happy for any questions about our letter. I know John Marion is at the State House and would have wanted to be here, and most likely Steve Brown as well.
Yeah, I do remember now that when Kate's talking, one of her concerns was just, I think, on the cap of 10 people because your
Exactly.
organization might want to be assisting. And so the version 3 does remove that. There is no cap. It's a compensation analysis instead.
Right. We were concerned that it would have an impact on our work and the work of other nonpartisan folks that are out there as well.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to clarify that the issue raised by Common Cause and ACLU about restricting drop boxes at polling places was not intended. So your understanding of what's written would be that a mail ballot could be delivered to any polling place as long as it got there by 8 o'clock.
Yes.
I looked at the Dropbox regulations and I thought that the definition would include.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kate. Any questions, comments for Kate?
Just a question. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. And in regards to the limit of 10, if we made, it was written with the intention that we could make rules to, again, identify organizations. So if we, let's say your organization would want to return more than 10 and you came to us and applied for unwritten rules that we don't have yet, would that answer your concern?
I'm not sure I understood you're saying if there were regulations enabling an agency like mine to return more than 10?
Yes, exactly.
Would
So
that
because
address my issue?
the way we wrote it was just saying 10
Yeah.
voters in any election, unless the person is designated to do so authorized by the state board.
Yes.
Again, by rules that have not been written yet, but if those rules were written in your,
Yeah, if you're saying you would envision authorizing a Disability Rights Rhode Island, that would certainly obviate the concern.
thank you.
Anything else for Kate? Thank you.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
As always, yes.
So is version 3 fully out for you?
For me, yes, thank you.
You said yes, thank you.
I know we've had a couple different iterations and still some, incoming information since version 3 and the work that was done in between. I don't know if any members of the board have a direction they want to take this legislation, what might be a next step.
Just to vote, I think.
I did have a question for Commissioner Giacomoni, because me and legal counsel Marcasio were even this morning speaking about, we met several times, at least 3 occasions, on this legislation. And one of the things I was still unclear of is in the wording, there is an affirmative in E that a voter may return their ballot via the, by the various methods outlined here. But then in section G, there is which appears to me to be specific to candidates or their political campaigns from returning ballots. And then there are exemptions to that if they live in the household. But I believe it could be read in E that a voter, these are the methods that a voter may use to return their ballot, but there is no restriction on anyone else returning the voter's ballot for them. So my question is if the intention of the legislation is it to restrict just campaigns, or is it to restrict anyone except for household members? Because I think if it's the second, then I think some language might have to be added to E, if that's what your intention was for the legislation.
No, to answer the question, my intention was to restrict campaigns or candidates only, not household members. That's why we specifically say, except for media member who lives in the household as the voter, et cetera, which is where, right after that, where I want to add caregiver.
But in our reading of it, in E, it says a voter who receives the ballot may return it. But it doesn't say only a voter may return the ballot.
That's because somebody in their household could return it.
But under the circumstances such as if you had a housing manager, the management of, or someone, a cousin who does not reside with them, someone that is not a household member, doesn't work for a campaign, is the intention of this to restrict that individual from doing it as well? Or is it just for campaign managers and campaigns? Because it seems to only focus on the voter having these opportunities, they may, and then it restricts campaigns. So I just want to be clear, if the legislation is going to go forward, it should be clear if that's your intention.
I'm not sure I understand the question, because the cousins, but that's why I specifically call exceptions of immediate family members, although cousin is not specifically listed in that list.
This is in G?
Yeah.
Because in G, it says, no person affiliated with a candidate for office or political campaign shall possess a voter's mail ballot. Then it goes into those exceptions. But what about someone who is not working for a campaign, who is not a candidate, who is not a household member, is someone who is, it could just be a family friend who lives across the street. It could be, because if that's the intention to restrict that, then it should be made more clear in here. Or if that's not your intention, then the language is fine.
That is not my intention, so I think
Okay.
the language is fine.
So I just want to
I
make sure.
appreciate the question, but yeah, I just want to make sure I understood what you were asking.
So under your interpretation, would someone who is not a household member and who does not work for a campaign and is not a candidate, would they be able to submit the ballot?
The way it's written now, no, I don't think that's the case, actually.
So there wouldn't be.
Well, that wasn't you asked me if that was my intention. No, that was not my intention. The way I read it now, I suppose you could interpret it if my cousin lives across the street from me and I ask him or her to return the ballot, then that's technically against the rules. But
Okay.
that's the way.
So
If
let
the
me
cousin
let me
is-
chime
go
in
ahead.
too, just to get
Yeah.
this, because when you look at E, actually, I thought it was pretty broad at the
Yeah.
end, because it does say, and Miguel and I went back and forth on this. This was
Yes.
not very clear for us, but it does say that the voter, and that second and last line, so the last 2 lines, it says a polling place The person or deemed authorized by the voter that is not affiliated with a candidate. It seems that
That would cover
under
that.
this language, anyone who is not, rather, anyone who is authorized, whoever they are, so long as they're not a candidate or affiliated with the campaign,
Could be.
can serve in that role.
So then
And that
what-
instead, what you have is the cap of 10. So
And
that
the
whoever is doing
exceptions.
it can only do that for one election cycle, which might raise other issues of practicality, which
Mhm.
is, how would the board, how would you come to realize that the person transmitting the ballots has exceeded the 10?
Mhm.
Only that person would or should
An
know, but
affidavit, yeah.
you probably, as a board, as a local board, whatever, would never really figure that out until maybe after the election is over. It's hard to say, but that's a practical issue, and that's something the board could grapple with. But I do see that it does say anyone that is designated, so long as they're not part of a campaign.
Yeah, so I thank you for pointing that out. I was focused on G, but yes, E does point that out.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how the 10 is relevant to E, but the 10, somebody would know at the local canvasser. I suppose someone could return 2 today and 5 tomorrow and
Drop it over.
7 next
Yeah.
week, getting to an aggregate of
Mhm.
10. But I think the intention of I was to prevent, which happens all the time, a large number being returned all at once to a local canvasser, usually at the last minute.
And I have surveyed other states. There are states that have used that as well, 3, 10, or whatever. There are other states that have a cap. I haven't had time to assess, and Miguel might assess, how would they actually realize that you reach that 3 or 10? Maybe it's a certification process or something else.
I will say that, because Ray mentioned California, I was at the conference, the National Association of Elections Directors. I did have the opportunity to speak with the general counsel for the California Secretary of State and some of their staff. And they, as Ray described, they have a restriction, some restrictions on mail ballots as well, but they have on their envelope, they have an attestation or something along those, an authorization that I am authorizing this individual to return my ballot for me. And that's the only individual that can return it. So I would think that because on our mail ballot application, we do have something similar. You authorize someone to pick up your ballot. And I'm not sure, I know the Secretary of State's here, but there is not that much room left on that envelope. We've been working with them over the last few months on redesigning that. And I'm not sure if there is space to do something like that, to authorize the individual on there. We do certainly have the assistant, if someone is signing the certification and they have an assistant, we made room for that. But as far as the person authorized to return the ballot, that'd be something that we would have to look at. But in that case, theoretically, you could, if you had to research it, you could find how many people were authorized to return a ballot, but that would take some manual process on our part to do that, because we use high-speed sorting equipment at this point.
And do you remember if in California, they have specifically outlined, similar to how we want, the outline of immediate family, blah, blah, blah. Do you know if California did that as well? Or if it's
No,
just
there,
because of the signature, then you have something?
there are no restrictions on who, it's just they have to
To
authorize someone,
authorize.
give authorization for
Mm.
someone to do it, or they have to return it themselves. And there is no cap on the number either. They did originally have a law several years ago that restricted family members on doing that. And at some point that changed, and now it's still restricted to a voter, or if the voter authorizes someone to do so. And that's why they have the language on the envelope.
And I believe the current amendment came in
From that.
around 2019. So that's the one that
you
comes in play
mentioned.
now.
I have a question, Commissioner. Is it your goal to prevent the harvesting of ballots altogether?
Well, I wouldn't use that term, but that is not my primary goal. My primary goal here is, as I mentioned, to try to make this as close to the polling place as possible and to avoid what I think is a clear conflict of interest for political campaigns to be possession of a voter's ballot.
Well, look at this scenario. In Rhode Island, we have a lot of homebound elderly. And many of them are serviced by Meals on Wheels. So the mail ballot comes in, they sign it off, and then he asks their neighbor, or could be a candidate, to mail it for them or bring it to the mail drop box. That, I think this legislation would pose an impediment on that. Because you want as many people as possible to vote. But at the same time, you want to know who are the professional harvesters who are going around ringing doorbells and trying to, get those mail ballots. I think if you balance it all off, Miguel has the solution, and that is to put on the envelope itself, I authorize Joe or Ray or whatever it is to mail the ballot for me or bring it to the the drop box. That way, we will know who are the people who are actually picking up these mail ballots. I mean, if that's the goal, is to find out who it is, then we should have their names on the actual envelope, rather than say, well, you can only have, you can't pick up more than 10 during the course of an election cycle. We have no way of monitoring that. Nobody's going to be self-reporting that they picked up 10 or 11, 12, or 15, or 20. They're just dropping it in the mailbox. We have no idea who these people are. But if it's the names on the envelope by the voter that I authorize Dave or Ray to mail this or deliver it to a drop box, we will know. I think that's the focus. The focus should be who's actually doing the delivery, rather than making a restriction on the number of people, on number of mail ballots they can pick up, okay, and who's present, who's not present. I mean, I think we should focus on that particular point.
Commissioner, I appreciate your comments. I think the Meals on Wheels is an interesting example. I think it's what I might define as an edge case, because the likelihood that that person also happens to be a candidate is probably percentage-wise very small. But just to be clear, the goal of this is not to track who's returning mail ballots. The goal of this is to prevent campaigns from being in possession of and intimidating voters, exactly like we do in the polling place. It seems everyone's hung up on the 10, the I section, I'd be happy to strike that altogether for now if that's really a hang up for everybody. But I can tell you, having been on the board of canvassers in Cranston, we know who the people are that are returning work, because there's certain because those people are coming in with more than 10 at any given time. I'm not worried about the people that are returning 2 here and 1 there. That's not what I'm worried about. It's the people that come in bulk with much more than 10 that's actually causing issues. But if that is a hang up for everybody, I'm happy to strike that and take that up as a separate issue at some other time.
Commissioner, if your goal is to prevent people from possessing and holding on those mail ballots until the very last moment, then why does the legislation say once a mail ballot is given to your possession, either to mail or deliver, you must do it promptly?
I'm sorry.
Why not do it that way?
You may have misunderstood me. I didn't say there was nothing about timeliness in my comments. Again, it's focused on preventing whatever the time frame, quick, slow, just as long it's focused on preventing campaigns from having possessions of the ballots and intimidating voters, exactly like we do in the polling places.
Yeah, but the point is, if you say possession and holding on to the mail ballots at the last moment for whatever reason, why not say that if someone's giving you a mail ballot, you have to deliver it right away? Why not? Would that solve your problem?
No, yeah, I suppose that's another way to look at it, but I think the 10 actually solves the problem adequately enough. Again, if that seems to be the hang up, I'm happy to strike that for now. That is not the main portion of the changes that I've made here. So
Just for Mr. Scholl's edification, in California, you must transmit the ballot within 3 days of receiving the completed ballot, so that now if you go beyond that, there's no ramification for the voter. It's still counted as long as it reaches there on time. But that's their solution to it.
Well, that's a common sense solution.
you tell me? Yes, sir.
I guess I'll just state my opinion and I'll see what the rest of the board wants to do. I feel like with a minor change with the addition of caregiver in section G, that I'm willing to make a motion to support this, to move forward, because we've talked about this last year.
Is that with eliminating I as well, or is that just? as it's-
I think we should keep I, but again, if this is a hangup and it's going to prevent someone from supporting it, I happy, again, in the spirit of compromise, would be
I'm
happy.
just asking from the perspective of the second.
Okay.
I'll second it, however.
Okay, thank you. Well, then I'll make a motion to use version 2 as presented by Mr. Marcaccio, with the exception of modifying section G to add the word after the word voter in the second sentence, so same household as the voter or caregiver, add that term. That's in the form of a motion. I'm happy to repeat that.
I just wanted to, I think the Secretary of State has some input here as well. Greg McBurney is here, so.
Oh,
wanna hear
sorry,
from him?
Greg. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Greg McBurney, Deputy Director of Elections for Secretary of State Greg Amore.
Greg, can you, that thing? Now, Mike, you stand up and act like you're coming over here. Yeah.
There it goes. Thanks, Mike.
Yep, told ya. Called it.
Again, Greg Burney, Deputy Director of Elections for Secretary of State's office. We reviewed, I just have a few notes here. One, the first version, I think we agree with everyone that adding that section K is a good idea. For version 2, Ray, thanks for explaining the edits in section E. We do have some cases where voters prefer to hand the ballot directly to a person as opposed to put it in a drop box. Finally, version 3, we're concerned that this version does not prohibit someone running for office or someone affiliated with a political campaign from assisting a voter with their mail ballot. So ultimately, our office will support versions 1 and 2.
Thank you.
Greg,
you.
can you repeat on version 3 what the concern was? I missed part of that.
Sure, just concerned that that version does not prohibit someone running for office or someone affiliated with a political campaign from
That's right.
assisting a voter.
That's right. That's correct. Yep. Okay. Got it.
Any questions for Greg while we have him? And then I do know that we have members of the cities and towns here, so if they might want to offer something, but any questions for Greg? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That one's better.
Is that local knowledge?
Yeah.
Because I work in the city. So Nick Lima, I'm the Registrar Director of Elections for the City of Cranston, Board of Canvassers, and also the chairperson of the Elections Committee for the Rhode Island Town City Clerks Association. Madam Chair, members of the board. So neither the Board of Canvassers nor the association have taken a position on this bill. But we did have a call of the Elections Committee this morning, and we did discuss it. And there's obviously concerns among some election officials, myself included, regarding the law as it currently is. I think there is an appetite to see some sort of changes made to the law. I think in large part along the lines of what Commissioner Giacofoni is suggesting, and to deal with the problems that have been illustrated. I can tell you that as an election official, now, if a candidate were to come to a polling place on election day, walk up to the supervisor's table and grab a stack of ballots, the poll workers would probably tackle that candidate to the ground. However, if a candidate or a representative of that candidate's campaign comes to our office with a stack of 30 emergency mail ballot applications, as happens, we have to smile and hand them 30 unsealed, live, unvoted ballots. And then now that member of a campaign is then responsible to get those out to a voter. And, you know, I don't want to name names because the practice is legal under current law, but we have had candidates or representatives of their campaigns come into our office an hour before the deadline on Monday, the day before an election, with 20 or 30 or 40 applications, emergency mail ballot applications for voters. Those are voters that, for all we know, may be planning to vote on election day anyway, but, you know, they, for whatever reason, were in touch with this campaign. And by law, we are compelled, if those applications are properly filled out, they aren't always are, but if they are, we have to then spend the next couple of hours preparing those emergency mail ballot packages for each individual voter, handing it to that candidate, and that candidate or campaign is then getting their car with all those ballots and driving around with hours to go to deliver those mail ballots, which I think in many cases the voters would struggle to get back on time unless the candidate or campaign is going to be doing that themselves. That's problematic for me as an election official, personally. If I had 20 live unvoted ballots in my own car, even though I'm under oath and it's part of my job, I would still be uncomfortable with that prospect. Never mind a candidate or a campaign who has a vested interest because they appear on the ballot themselves. So I think that's, without adding any obstacles to the voter to try and thread that needle and that difficult challenge that other states have also tried to deal with. It's tough to craft language that accomplishes both goals, preserving the rights of the voter and also ensuring that candidates or campaigns aren't handling massive amounts of ballots for voters. One thing that we did discuss on our call this morning that I want the board to be aware of, when it comes to the getting into the weeds of policing this sort of activity, there are many laws out there where it is illegal to do X, but there is not an active effort to police that unless we receive information that a crime is being committed. So I just would caution the board from getting bogged down with things like adding in new fields or trying to count the number of people based on someone's handwriting or a scribble or on a mail ballot or oath envelope. Because to do that proactively up front could add an extra burden for local boards of canvassers. Whereas, as Commissioner Jack Roney noted, typically you're aware of the folks that are coming into your front counter every day and asking for 5 or 6 or 7 mail ballot applications at a time, multiple times over the course of an election period. And if it was made illegal, well, that could be communicated to candidates and campaigns. I think they would know that pretty quickly. And then if they were still to try and circumvent the law or violate it, we have ample mechanisms already in place to either investigate or to refer to law enforcement to investigate for investigation without having to get into the weeds of adding up numbers statewide. So again, we don't have a formal position on this. These are just thoughts and concerns that came up on the call this morning with my colleagues. We don't have a position as a group. I obviously have my own personal opinions on this as an election official, but we don't have a position either way as either the Board of Canvassers of Cranston or the Clerks Association at this time. That said, we are also looking at research in practices in other states, and we may choose to take a position in the future.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of good discussion happening around, and you're saying you're not, what would be your mechanism, just out of curiosity for future, to take an official position? Do you vote?
Correct.
that,
But once, for example, the board, if the board were to finalize language on this and have legislation submitted in the General Assembly,
Yeah.
I think we would meet as a committee, look at that, review it with our colleagues in other cities and towns, the association, and then take a position at that time.
Okay, thank you.
I can ask you a question? Thanks. What is your opinion if there was legislation that said somebody had to deliver the mail ballot after complete mail ballot within 2 or 3 business days?
I think that, for one, to me, I think putting in an arbitrary time on it is less effective than leaving it silent. Because if it's silent, if you put well, you have 72 hours to get this back. I could see them sitting around on somebody's desk in a campaign headquarters for 72 hours if
No,
if
my
they're
feeling
allowed
is
to have it.
after they complete it, somebody who's actually, the person who has possession of the completed ballot itself, that person has 2 or 3 business days to return it.
For the actual,
Yeah.
for the voter themselves?
No, the voters signed it,
Okay.
sealed it, given it
The
to
voter's
somebody,
agent.
either to drop in a mail ballot, drop box, or into a mailbox itself. What's your opinion whether or not you should put a time frame on the person who's actually taking possession of that to actually deliver that within the 2
I prefer the
business
time frame immediately.
Right.
We use immediately in other areas of Title 17 when it comes to duties that are incumbent upon election officials or poll workers. I think immediately should be the phrase used for someone that's in possession of a voter's ballot. They shouldn't be going to the coffee shop on the way. They shouldn't be holding on to it for a day or two with a ticking clock against it. I think once you are trusted by a voter or designated by a voter to possess their mail ballot for them, I think that the very next thing you should be doing is getting that ballot to a 24-hour drop box or to an election official.
Very good. May I ask Commissioner Jacoboni a question? Would you be agreeable to add that language into your proposed version 2?
Just tell me, I'm sorry, can you just repeat the language?
That the person who has possession of the completed mail ballot has to deliver it immediately. Deliver it or mail it immediately.
And the purpose of that is to prevent what? So tell me.
So the
walk me through
person
that.
won't have a possession of their mail ballot for any length of time. They would, if they were given the mail ballot to mail or to put in the drop box, they would have to do it immediately. They're not going to hold it for a week, 10 days,
Mhm.
accumulate a whole bunch of them and drop it off in the drop box.
Yeah, I have no objection to adding that.
Okay.
I,
But that would, I think, be in concert with what Nick just said.
I didn't hear what we
Thank
were
you.
adding. I'm so sorry.
We haven't added anything yet.
We
We're just-
haven't
we're
added anything yet.
discussing, yeah.
but Nick made the point of, best to return something immediately. I'm going to say something. It sounds like I do want to state that I think obviously everyone here and all of us do not and appreciate your intent. Commissioner Jacoboni, do not want any voters, particularly in their own home or place where they are residing, to be manipulated, or otherwise coerced. But we've had a couple, go arounds now, and it seems like there's conversations, productive above bar conversations, and then advocates are submitting good letters in reaction. Is there an appetite or scenario where, and I don't know what this would need to be legally, where we commission a group of well, we're all in the same sector, but like a collaborative group that's all in the same room at the same time discussing this, so that maybe we can come closer to getting to a place where, folks feel comfortable supporting it. I don't know. That just popped into my head because it seems like people care about this issue, and I'm certainly not trying to stifle conversation here tonight, but I know I can speak for myself. I'm not at a point to make a formal, vote for myself of whether I would support what version and when. So I don't know what others think about that, but.
I certainly appreciate the feedback, and if the board chooses not to support this, I will submit it again next year, so we can consider it for the third year in a row. I think if we did the commission to get everybody in the room, it seems to me that would, not that, we deal with a lot of important issues that we don't do that. So I don't know why this would stand out as something that we would take a completely different tack and approach to it. And it's not like we're making law here. We're making a suggestion that'll go to the General Assembly. So I think there's plenty of time for people to give their feedback. So my personal, that being said, I would personally like to take a vote on this because I think it's important that the public know, where we stand on this. And the language may not be perfect, but I think we have plenty of opportunity to kind of go through it and make some modifications.
And I appreciate that, that we don't do it maybe we should do more of it, I would say. So that's a conversation for another day, but point totally understood.
And I think it's come a long way, if I can say that, to
Yeah.
your point. I think compared to like last year, there are portions of it that I'm still trying to figure out what that means. I think I'm still confused about the E and the G portion a little bit. But even the number of the limit, I don't know if I care or not. I think I understand where it comes from, like external parties. For some reason, I actually really like number 3, but I understand now from the Secretary of State's comments about, well, that doesn't, it's interesting. I like 3, but it doesn't, I didn't realize until it was mentioned that it doesn't talk about the campaign workers, because I think it's just more concise. It's more to the point, but if it's not something that you like, and so again, because I remember last year, all of us looking at it and we were like, what's that? Like, that's why I asked for the goal, because to me, I read the goal here now. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that.
And if I could just add from the staff's position, we don't have a position on the bill. We clearly, whatever the board chooses, we will advocate for the bill at the General Assembly. And I appreciate Commissioner Jack Boney with clarifying the intent, because that makes it easier for us to argue on
Correct.
behalf of the bill if the
Exactly.
board does choose to support it. And in terms of impact on our operations, it doesn't impact us directly. Either 3 of these versions
Mhm.
does not impact the staff, because this is more something that would occur at the local level, as far as issuing the ballots, the emergency ballots, for example. I do, from a selfish point of view, from an elections administrator, I do like the inserting language to return it immediately, because we prefer to get ballots back earlier than later, because getting them at 8 o'clock on election night just leads to delayed results.
But
So
that
we
doesn't-
encourage all voters to return their ballots 7 days before election day, as soon as possible, just so we can count them and have results on election day. But even that's not a,
But
That's
that's
not-
just a wording, if anything. It's not like we're going to impact somebody's vote because they don't do it within 7 days.
yeah, and it wouldn't impact us. I mean, we will count them regardless if they're here at 8 o'clock or if they're here 7 days before election day. So any of these versions, and if this were to become a law, we would obviously get the word as far as when we go to candidate information groups and that, things of that nature, to make sure that people are clearly aware of it. We've already been to several of those, 2 of them over the last month, for new candidates. So certainly if there are any candidate information events, we would do that if this were to become something that was enacted.
Okay. So we can move on.
Yes, did you put a motion?
I did. I'm
Motion
going
and
to
a second.
retract that. Based on
motion and a
Commissioner
second.
Scholl's feedback, I'd like
Okay.
to revise that motion. So I'm going to make a motion to approve version 2 of 3 with the addition of, at the end of section E, say, in the case when a person is authorized by the voter to return their ballot, they must deliver it immediately. And then in section G, in the second sentence, after the wording, same household as the voter, add or a caregiver.
Mhm.
I make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No.
I'll abstain, no.
Did
Can
you
I
say aye or
Yeah,
no?
I sure, I guess.
You did?
Yes,
Okay,
I did.
sorry. No, and so the ayes have it, motion carries.
And now we're on the main motion. Is there a main motion here?
Oh, that was intended to be all in one motion. but-
Okay, but I'm to clarify, under subsection I, I believe we said the mail ballot,
Oh, the 10.
no person can return a mail ballot more than 10 voters in any election.
Mhm.
Are you deleting that section?
I did not in the motion, no.
Well, if you delete that, I can support it. Okay, but
The motion's already carried. Are you saying the motion's already been
no,
made
the
and
motion
carried?
to amend.
I think
I'm
the
sorry, a
commission
motion
was
to
viewing
amend?
That as a motion to amend, correct?
My
Yeah, it's a
apologies.
motion to
Okay,
amend.
I understand now.
Yeah. Now we have the main motion.
I don't know how it works.
I'm not sure what
Ray,
to.
you have to
So-
walk us through
How do
this
we,
one.
Well,
did we vote?
Then I'll make a motion to amend your motion on
To
this.
strike. Aye.
To strike the
second
10.
version 2, to strike subparagraph I pertaining to the 10 mail ballots that any one person
Okay, I
can
understand.
deliver.
Yeah.
Can he do this?
Well, I don't have Robert's rules in front of me. We have no parliamentarian rules that govern us, by the way. But I do consult Robert's rules. I believe
Look
that
at
you
Lou.
can do it. It could make this a a longer process, but I don't think there's any restriction to
Okay.
modifying by amendment an immediately preceding motion. That's been basically
I'll
carried.
second
It's been
Commissioner
carried.
Schultz's.
Okay.
Okay, and so the motion is to amend what we just passed to remove I.
Correct.
Got it, that's it, okay.
Okay, moved and seconded.
I'll just say in the spirit of good faith, I didn't mean to cause confusion. So in the spirit of good faith, I understand the motion. So I'll be happy to support it.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No. And motion passes. The ayes have it.
Tully, did you figure out who just voted aye?
Yes, and this last
Four,
one,
okay,
all of
4 to
us
1.
voted aye
Okay.
and then one no.
First one
Yep.
was 3-2.
All right.
Agenda item number 6, the board may discuss and vote on amendments to its professional service agreement with and express vote lease purchase agreement with Election System and Software LLC.
Honorable members of the board, before you today are two minor ES&S election systems and software contract amendments that reflect a reduction of 4 DS200 units and 10 express vote units that will be covered by our existing service and maintenance firmware and licensing agreements with ES&S due to damage that they incurred in February of 2025. We are in the process of acquiring 8 new DS300s to supplement our current DS200 inventory. And the reduction in our express vote inventory will not affect our operations as we have ample units available to deploy in statewide or special elections. Now, the original express vote agreement with ES&S was signed in 2022 when this responsibility was under the Secretary of State's office. And the DS200 agreement was signed in 2024 after responsibility for the purchase of voting equipment moved to the board. We are, as part of these two amendments before you, the number of DS200s is being reduced from 610 units to 606 units. And it reflects a $2,280 reduction in the cost of the agreement. The express vote units are being reduced from 620 to 610 covered units. That will reduce the cost by $3,660 over the remaining 2 years of the express vote contract as well. The total cost reduction between both of these amendments is $5,940 over the final 2 years. The 4 DS200s and the 10 express votes being removed will still remain in use as demonstration units. They will not be deployed to any Title 17 or financial town meeting or local referendum elections. And as I said, there will be no impact on our operations, especially as we are seeing an overall trend in the reduction of the number of polls with the recent enactment of the law that allows polling places, number of voters assigned to them to increase to 3,500. So many communities are actually reducing the number of their precincts. So no impact on our operations. And again, we do expect to acquire 8 DS300s, which are the newer version of the DS200, which will actually boost our DS200 fleet from the 606 units to 614, which is higher than what we originally had back in 2016 when we acquired these units. I'm happy to answer any questions from the board. Yes.
Yes.
Conclusion.
In conclusion.
We're saving.
Ray, have and you've reviewed this, you're okay with the
I
amendments?
did. Miguel and I reviewed it. We spoke about it. The approach from the vendor is to do a new exhibits A and B. I think they could have done a line item amendment, but they chose to just do a full revision with just these very specific modifications that are made. So it's fine.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the amendments as outlined by the Executive Director for the professional services agreement and express vote lease purchase agreement, as he's indicated.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any no? Abstention? The ayes have it. Motion
Motion to
carries. Oh, Look at you.
You said I wasn't doing it.
You
Second.
weren't.
Wow.
Now I'm just gonna pause for a little awkward silence here. Any further discussion on adjourning? Motion to adjourn and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it, and we are adjourned at 5:30 PM. Thank you, everyone.
You know what?